Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to United in Strengths, your character strengths community. And it's Ryan Niemiec and Ruth Pierce here with you with the VIA Institute on Character, where we take time to remember to breathe, to remember that we have 24 character strengths to turn to, and to practice connecting with one another, both right here in our community and in our Facebook community, but also in our own daily life. And so today marks the sort of the last United in Strength session that I'll be at. You'll be in wonderful hands with Ruth for the next couple of weeks. But before we move into today, where I was thinking we might make it sort of a highlight session, go through some of the highlights and some of the key practices that we've discussed over the months. I'm curious, by maybe a show of hands, and to raise your hand, you simply click on the participants tab, click on your name, and then click raise your hand. Or you can, of course, do it if you have your camera on. I'm curious, by show of hands, how many of you have attended every single session that we've offered, which is more than 50 sessions? So I'm just curious if there's anybody in the room that has attended more than 50. So Paul, Naraki, and Benedict. Wonderful. There's some more. Janet Schrager. And if I'm missing anybody, Ruth, let us know. Irislav. That's 4 people. I might not be able to see everybody. Wonderful. It's amazing that there's even one person, so several people that haven't missed one. This is wonderful. We're so happy that you found this to be just a very nice, stable, consistent community. And it's wonderful to have each of you here, actually. I'm curious how many of you have started attending in the last, say, 3 months. Maybe just raise your hand, and have been consistent in attending more so than not. Okay, so a number of different hands going up from Paula and Pamela and Kim, Roberta, Jennifer. Wonderful, great. Well, so excited to have all of you here, and for this to be part of your community. It's a great privilege and honor for Ruth and I both to be doing this, and for the VIA Institute. And we think that we're part of something with you that's really exciting, and it's something that we've always talked about at the VIA Institute, to have a character strengths community, but never known exactly the best way to do it. And we want to keep improving, so we want to keep improving this community as we move into 2021. But just wanted you all to know that that we're very honored to be here doing this with you all, and we look forward to being just as strong and continuing to improve next year, and really offering character strengths and mindfulness and other positive psychology resources like this to the world, to try to help individuals, help communities, help one another. Yeah, and so in these 50 sessions, we've had something like 15 to 20 guests. I didn't quite count. And we've, over the months since we started in April, we've taken the approach. We didn't really necessarily plan it precisely this way, but as we look at the various topics and things that we've covered, it's really 3 very broad areas, perhaps. So one broad area is we've gone into specific characters, and we've hit on, I believe Ruth and I counted 13, if you count teamwork next week, that Ruth will tackle. 13, so a little bit more than half of the character strengths. So we have some more work to do on the specific character strengths. And of course, we could go back and revisit some of the others, because 30 minutes or so doesn't do justice for one of these powerful ingredients in us, but it's a start. And then the other 2 pieces that we've done is tried to help boost well-being for people. So boosting well-being in all sorts of different ways, whether it's looking at close relationships, looking at building personal meaning, role models, mindfulness, mental health, virtuous mindfulness, the beloved community, all sorts of ways we've tried to tackle boosting well-being. And then third, helping people to manage adversity. So whether that's stress management, meaning and grieving, embracing suffering, embracing brokenness, anti-racism, underuse, overuse with character strengths, managing loneliness, family resilience, strengths redemption, managing the election stress, managing other stresses in our community. So we've tried to tackle that in a broad way, and there's far more adversities we'll continue to tackle, revisiting some of those that we've done and certainly tackling some new ones as we go into the new year. As you know, anyone that's kind of heard me talk just in general about character strengths in the last few months, that I've really been thinking about this work really with those two key words in mind, is that this work with character strengths, the research and the best practices, are all about boosting our well-being. So that's one word, well-being, or about adversity, managing the different conflicts and struggles that we have in life, and that both are very robust, very powerful pathways that we can tackle. So as I was thinking about this particular session here, you'll see flavors as I go through several highlights. I'll go through about 8 or so highlights and try to be very practical with each one. I want each of these to be sort of research-based practices that you can consider. In some of these, it will deal with well-being. Some of them will deal with adversity. Some of them will also deal with, you might remember, for those of you that were part of this in April and May, we were meeting 3 times a week, actually. And we took this approach where on Monday, we applied the concept to ourselves and our own healing, our own well-being. On Wednesday, we took the approach of applying it to others. So if the topic was humility or gratitude, we practiced applying it to others and boosting relationships that way. And then on Fridays, we focused on boosting that area for the world. So trying to make a stronger community, make the world a better place with character strengths. So these 8 highlights also reflect that. And then finally, these highlights will also reflect, the mindset and the catalyst for this kind of highlights recap, if you will, which is dealing with stress and dealing with holiday stress. It's, for many of us, maybe most of us, we're entering a holiday season. And if you're not entering a holiday season, you still are likely experiencing quite a bit of stress, all sorts of forms, whether it's the holiday stress, whether it's dealing with changes that COVID and vaccine might present to us, whether it's adapting holidays to new family situations, whether it's feeling new isolation or job loss stress, or just maybe it's a difficult time of year for you. So all sorts of stresses that come in different forms. So that's part of the mindset with doing this recap of these 8 practices and eight areas. And by the way, these 8 areas are certainly not all inclusive, because Ruth and I could sit here and do probably 100 practices that we've talked about and shared. So this is just 8, and it's maybe it's biased towards some of the things that I tend to like. So it's not to say the 8 best, but 8 I think really good ones, and 8 that I think will be helpful moving forward, and as we move into the next couple weeks of this year and then move into 2021. Okay, so let's dive into this, and then we'll conclude with a meditation that we did way back in April that has to do with linking the body and the mind. So it's sort of a body and mind mindfulness meditation, and then we'll of course open it up to the community at the very end for other questions, your own comments, your own thoughts, and so on. So okay, so let's dive in. So one practice number 1, if you will, building relationships. I'll try to frame these in a kind of a practical way. So build relationships, but start with yourself. So that's been a key message that we've offered throughout all these different months, that in order to bring benefit to other people, if you're a practitioner or you're a parent, you're a helper of some kind, we need to follow that adage of trying to make ourselves strong and solid and comfortable and character strengths based. Then we can help other people that much more. So that means that we need to attend to this thing that we call our relationship with ourselves, which is really an interesting way to think about relationships, because normally we immediately think of other people, which is true and so important and crucial for well-being. But what about, how do you relate to yourself? When you struggle with something or you fail with something, how do you relate to yourself? How do you respond to yourself in your mind and in your body after you struggle? So that's where we talk about bringing a sense of gentleness to ourselves after a failure, a sense of trying to learn, a sense of love, gratitude, kindness. So many of the character strengths. Now, for many of us, when we struggle and we make a mistake, we are overwhelmed with stress, for many of us, we turn immediately to this internal judge in our minds that's really negative. So for some people, that's very obvious if they watch their mind and they observe what's going on in my mind after I struggled in that last conversation, or I didn't measure up at work, or I've lost my job. For many people, it's very obvious what they say to themselves, and it's that I'm a failure, I'm no good, I'm terrible, see, I screwed up again, I'm such a loser. And our minds can get so harsh. And if we look at it, very mean, very critical for many of us. I don't know the percentage of people that have that a very dominant part of their mind, but it's a pretty large number. So sometimes that's the piece. And then for other people, it's very subtle. So for me, my inner judge, we all have a judge, which is helpful to be able to offer constructive criticism and to look at things in a balanced way. But sometimes, again, it can be hurtful. So for me, it's more subtle, where it might come across as thoughts of, I didn't do enough again, or, I didn't get everything done that I wanted to. Gosh, I keep, mismanaging my time. Those kinds of things are a little bit more subtle, but if that occupies a whole lot of mind space, then that could start to mess with me physically. It can bring me down a little bit. It messes with the next conversation that I'm in. I can point to different meetings that I've been in where I've been maybe experiencing that inner judge and then been more quiet, more down in the sense. So this first practice is all about starting with ourselves, and thinking about our relationship with ourselves, and applying the best positive word you can. So whether that's applying more of the characteristics of love to yourself, applying the characteristics of gentleness, being gentle and soft with yourself. Maybe kindness resonates with you, so it's about being kinder to yourself, thoughtful to yourself, considerate to yourself, fair to yourself, forgiving to yourself, socially intelligent with yourself. You get the idea. Okay, so that's one practice. This might seem a little bit jumbled because I'm just going to hop from thing to thing. Okay, so another piece that we talked about quite early on in United in Strengths is more of a reflective question. So this is a second practice that I'll pose to you as a reflection, and that is, how do you want to be in this world? So this world right now, this COVID world, this post-COVID world, this world that's trying to move past racism and bias. How do you want to be in this world? And here we offer a common language of character strengths to be able to really think about that in a deep way. So as you think about how you want to be in this world, and you could frame it right toward 2021, starting now or starting January 1st, right there with their goals. We all like to make goals, or many of us like to make goals for the new year. How do you want to be in 2021, starting in January, and making a plan for that? And have your character strengths lead the way. Because you can start each day by being your character strength. So is there one or two that you want to be more tuned into and act from? Whatever New Year's goal you might have, whether it's exercising more or being kinder to family, whatever it is, you can always bring the character strengths to the goal. So bring that sense of being to the goal and see what you think. So that's just a reflective question. Those of you that like to meditate or pray or practice another spiritual ritual, it's a beautiful question actually to pose in that sacred space of being present and really reflecting on how you want to be moving forward. Because so many of us are not being the way we actually want to be. We're being the way a parent wanted us to be, or we're being the way our boss wanted us to be, or we're being the way that we think that we maybe should be in the world, but how do you really want to be? Practice number 3. And this is a shout out for Ruth and I. So give time for beauty. And I say that because Ruth and I share the appreciation of beauty and excellent strength being a signature strength. And many of you, by the way, as well. So give time for beauty. And so let me clarify that for those that aren't as familiar with this character strength. So what that means is to look at beauty in a wide-reaching way. So beauty in nature, the beauty or excellence of other people's skills, people that display great skill, great art, great athleticism, admiring the beauty of architecture and the precision of that, or the beauty of other people's actions. When you see your mother or your child or your friend or somebody in the media doing something very kind, doing something very brave, doing something very thoughtful, we can feel this emotion that scientists now called, really it's a new emotion just in the last 20 years, it's been coined, 17 years really, called elevation. So we feel elevation when other people do really wonderful things or inspiring or kind things. So that's another type of beauty. It's a moral beauty, when people are really displaying their character strengths in a strong way. So give time for any of those beauty points that you relate to most. As you can see, I'm not talking about physical beauty at all. So give time. If it's nature and outdoor type of beauty, or maybe it's art, make space for that over the next couple weeks. Go out on your walks to savor the blue sky or the chill of the wind or the warmth of the sun. Give time to appreciate the excellence of other people right there in your life. And then give time to notice the goodness of others. We know that when we do that, when we notice the goodness of others and feel that emotion that's called elevation, that actually is linked with a greater likelihood that we'll then be kind, that we'll then commit what researchers call pro-social acts, kind acts to other people. So it actually makes us better when we do that. Practice number 4, discover mindful character strengths use. And by this, I mean the distinction between mindless use of our character strengths and mindfulness or mindful strengths use. So in some ways, it's sort of a mindfulness 2.0, if you will, with character strengths, where we can think of different ways that we use our character strengths in a very automatic way, autopilot way, like we're not even conscious of it. For example, how many times, even just this week, have we said, fairly mindlessly to somebody, okay, thanks, thank you, thanks for your time. And it's a cordial thing that we say, better to say it than not to say it, but it's not particularly a mindful use of gratitude. It's just sort of an autopilot use of gratitude. Or how many times we say, okay, love you too. And we're just saying it just as simple as a hello to somebody, just a very quick throwaway. We're leaving the house, saying, love you, see you later. Not quite a mindful use expression. Or a sort of a autopilot use of forgiveness. Somebody, apologizes for something they did wrong, and we just say, yeah, fine, no problem, sure. So we can bring a deeper mindful attention to cause us to use our character strengths in a deeper way, rather than just a short, superficial type of way. So if somebody apologizes to you for some wrongdoing, maybe a deeper, this is just one example, there's infinite examples, but one example might be that you would say, mindful forgiveness might be, well, thank you for apologizing. I have to say I was hurt when you did that to me. I felt quite upset, but I'm moving on, and I want you to know that I forgive you. I forgive you for what you did and the pain that you brought me. I'm working on letting go, and I hope you can let it go too. So, it's not going to be appropriate in every situation, but that would be just one example of sort of a mindful, deeper forgiveness. Not that all of us can get out there and do that in the next hour, but we can move toward that kind of mindful forgiveness. Or it's sort of a mindful gratitude rather than just, hey, thanks. We might say something like, Judy, I just wanted to take a moment to tell you how much I appreciated all the effort that you made on that project. You really went the extra mile. I'm just so grateful to you for your hard work. Thank you so much. So then Judy really then captures it. It sinks in. It's not just sort of a mindless, yeah, thanks for the email. It's a deeper appreciative gratitude. And perhaps this is the time of year. We tend to default, at least many countries do, probably not every country, but many countries, I guess I'll speak for the United States, tend to default on the holidays being the time of gratitude. So take advantage of that. Practice being more mindful with gratitude. But then, of course, extend it to all year round, too. Practice number 5. Find personal meaning throughout the next couple of weeks throughout this season. We made the distinction when we spent a week in United in Strengths talking about meaning in life. That was probably like week 4 or so. We made the distinction between little m and big M. Little m meaning is finding personal meaning, finding the moments. What's a meaningful moment for you that you catch a smile of your loved one and find the meaning there, or you found that a team meeting was particularly meaningful and impactful for you, or you're on that walk soaking in the beauty and you're finding some meaning as you observe the nature with all of your senses around you. So that would be little m meaning, finding those moments. Little certainly does not mean bad. Little's wonderful in this particular context. Whereas big M meaning is more like the meaning of life and like spending time grappling with those universal questions that we can. There's some research to support some ideas around that. We'll probably talk more about, we will talk more about spirituality and meaning as topics in 2021 for sure. But that would be big M meaning. So I'm inviting us to start with little m meaning. In other words, bringing it to character strengths. How will you use your character strengths to create meaning today? Maybe each day throughout the holiday season. How will you find meaningful moments with character strengths? For me, it's going to be using my hope strength with creative writing. So during this kind of season, I can kind of stop doing a lot of the scholarly writing and books and different things and just move to one of my biggest passion areas of writing, which is just creative types of stuff and maybe fiction kind of writing and reflecting on personal stories and that kind of thing. And that's going to be very, very meaningful for me. And it's tapping into my hope strength to be able to do that. Whenever I give time, I've mentioned this before, when I'm with one of my kids and I'm one-on-one, I tend to be more likely to have a meaningful moment than when there's 3 kids and they're all running in different directions and not listening and so on. But when I'm sitting down one-on-one, making eye contact and observing and connecting with them, that's a little m meaning, a wonderful meaning. So maybe you can find a little m meaning once a day throughout this holiday season. Let me offer you a practice just very quickly, another one related to meaning. It came from our guest speaker, Itai Ibsan, when he presented to us in April or May, and he suggested to all of us during this time of COVID, if you were to give your time in COVID a book title, what would it be? So if you were to capture this experience, the stressors, the positives, looking for silver linings, whatever it might be, a book title, what would it be? So you can go back and hear lots of examples from that if you watch that particular session. I won't go into that now. Okay, so next practice, number 6. What character strengths cause you peace? P-E-A-C-E, peace. Which character strengths cause you peace? And those that attended any of the 3 peace sessions, or we had a peace retreat, mindfulness and character strengths for peace retreat that we did, I think it was in May. It was a half-day event for United in Strengths. It was the one time we went longer than 45 minutes. And we had 500 people in on that particular session. And so in that session, you might recall that we were talking about various examples of how the different character strengths can bring about peace. And I think anyone here could make the argument for any of the 24 character strengths as being crucial for your peace, your inner peace, personal inner peace, your relational peace, your group peace. So for example, maybe for some of us, it's self-regulation. Self-regulation is this wonderful character strength about calming ourselves, right? It's literally creating peace, when we are using more self-regulation and we're taking control of our breathing, bringing our attention back to our breathing. That's the self-regulation of our breath. That's what mindfulness is all based in. And we're literally creating more moments of peace with that strength. Or for others, the strength might be for peace creation. It might be what's talked about in a lot of different peace programs, which is creating more effective communication with other people. And so it's using honesty and using social intelligence with that honesty to communicate in a productive way. Many different peace programs, not always called peace programs, but tend to focus on those kind of character strengths, even if they're not always called out like that. So maybe those are your key strengths for causing peace. If we look at Nobel Peace Prize winning speeches, aside from the word peace, the word that's most found in Nobel Peace Prize speeches is a character strength, hope. That's the word that comes up next, or most out of the character strength. So maybe for you, hope is linked with peace. For somebody else, it's the act of letting go of forgiveness. And that creates more peace, because we know when we forgive, we let go of tension, we let go of anger and resentment. And isn't that a lot of ways creating peace? When we're thoughtful to others and we're helpful and generous to others, that's kindness. And perhaps that creates peace when you do that. For other people, it's curiosity. They're about to be in a heated dialogue politically with somebody or religiously with somebody. And they say, you know what, instead of defending my point of view and fighting, trying to be right, I'm going to just be curious. I'm going to come at it with my signature strength of curiosity and just explore and just question. I'm not going to proclaim I know more or state anything. Again, it's easier said than done, but some people will resonate with that curiosity as their pathway to peace. In some early research, not even published yet, prudence is named as a key peaceful strength when it comes to bullying, and that might be the key protective character strength for protecting people against bullying and for people not being bullies. So it's not even been published yet, but maybe prudence is the strength. Maybe it's humility. If I look at one of the most peaceful people I've ever laid eyes on personally on the planet, it would be Thich Nhat Hanh, the peaceful Zen monk, and he would come at peace from humility, all about humility and gentleness. And so that's a different character strength angle versus if you look at it from an angle of Martin Luther King, who clearly was all about peace. He had a fiery peace. So that's like zest and bravery and perseverance. So a very different angle with peace. So as you can see, it's a very exciting topic, and all the 24 are possible. So we want to make our own discoveries with that. Okay, 2 more practices. Another practice, this comes from our guest speaker that we had several months ago, Maria Serwa, who offered wisdom on self-care. And I think, 80% of us are going to need self-care, and I'm part of the 80%. Over the holiday season here. So for self-care, she says, start off each day with 3 questions for yourself. And they are, what nourishes you? What strengthens you? What inspires you? Start with those 3 questions. See if you can answer them. You might not always answer all 3, and then see if you can make your day partly about what nourishes you, what strengthens you, what inspires you. Or I would invite you don't have to go with those 3 questions. I would invite you to create your own questions. I would probably replace one of them, because there's a lot of overlap in those questions for me personally. I would switch one of them to meaning. And I would say, what might give me personal meaning today? And then you could take her strategy in yet a different way, which is toward tailoring it to your signature strengths. So you might look at your signature strengths, and maybe your 3 questions, let's say your highest strengths are curiosity, creativity, and kindness. Then you might say your 3 questions might be, how am I going to feed my curiosity today? How will I express my creativity today in a different way? My creativity today in a different way. And third, you might say, how can I keep kindness at the top of my mind? So that whenever I interact with a person by Zoom, or my neighbor getting the mail, or when I have a phone call with my friend, kindness is there. So how am I going to keep kindness in the top of my mind? Is it keeping a stone that says the word kindness in my pocket? Is it writing the word down on a Post-it note and keeping it next to my computer? How am I going to do that today? So again, those are just examples. You would tailor it to your own signature strengths. And you don't want to overwhelm yourself with questions. So you don't want to come up with 20 questions. You'd start with 1 or 2 or maybe 3. And then the 8th practice it came from another guest speaker, Jenny Brennan, who is one of our practitioner presenters, and she was echoing the Stanford researcher Kelly McGonigal, who talks about all the good of stress. And certainly we at VIA want to help people embrace stress and see the suffering and be honest about the suffering. But also we want to look at ways to reframe the suffering and transcend the suffering and cope with the suffering all through character strengths. And so she was offering three different ways, three different responses with character strengths that you can respond to stress, to be able to try to see, as Kelly McGonigal's book title says, the upside of stress, that it's not just horrible. Now, there's some horrible stressors, so we're not making light of anything. But also, how can we see some upsides too? We all desperately need that from time to time. And so those three phrases to keep in mind, and we could write them down and remember them, memorize them, and think about the character strengths that link with them. One is, how can we rise to the challenge with this stressor? So clearly that's about bravery, being brave enough to rise to the challenge. It's maybe about zest, being brave enough to be energized and enthusiastic. Secondly, how is this stressor bigger than myself? So using our perspective strength, how is this bigger than me? So when we get lost in something, we kind of give ourselves a bit of a break and say, you know what, we're all in this COVID situation together. Maybe I can be a little easier to myself. So we look at it from a bigger perspective. This is bigger than me. And then third, how can I learn from this stressor? So clearly that's the love of learning character strength, curiosity character strength. We could add meaning to any of those, to where, how might I find meaning in the stressor? So that could be a fourth particular pathway. So those are some practices, and I want to invite us, and maybe just think about this for a moment, because I want us to move into a meditation, but maybe we could actually start the community part after the meditation by reflecting on what strategy strikes us most of the 8 and why. So we can share that maybe in the chat. You can start to think about that. Which of these 8 strikes you most and why? And of course, if you have a plan of action, then please, that you might take over the next few weeks and moving forward into 2021, then please jot that down too and share it with us. Okay, so let's move into a meditation. And the meditation that we'll do today is called the Character Strengths Breathing Space, which is a way of linking in character strengths and mindfulness, and doing this with our bodies. So I want to invite us, actually, if it's feasible for you, to stand up for this meditation. I'm already standing. I don't know if you know, but I'm always standing during these presentations. I have a standing desk here, but I'm going to actually lower my desk so that you can maybe get a better angle and see me. So while that lowers, I'll try to talk a little bit louder. So I want to invite us just to get into a comfortable standing posture. A little bit too low here. What we'll do with this meditation is go through 3 character strengths that are really at the heart of meditation. And before I lead us through those 3 steps, I want to invite us just to find a solid place for our feet and for our bodies. So feeling strong with how you stand here right now. Feeling a sense of solidness, comfort, as you stand here, strong as a mountain. And for this whole exercise, you can experiment with your eyes open or closed. You can kind of go back and forth. And for the first phase of this 3-phase meditation, I want to invite us to begin with curiosity. So this is where we can open our hands. Our palms can face outward as we open and welcome whatever's happening in our present moment. We're not having to do anything else. You don't have to breathe in any particular way. You don't have to stand in any particular way. Just welcoming whatever's going on in your present moment. So it could be shoulder tension. It could be stress from your day that's running through your mind. It could be that you notice shallow breathing in your chest. It could be that you notice sounds in the room. Just being curious about whatever's happening in this moment. Be curious about your feelings right now, your body right now. Rather than judging it, rather than trying to push it away, your open, welcoming arms as a way of conveying to yourself, I accept this in this particular moment. I don't have to like it, but I can accept this particular moment because it's already happening in the present moment. I'm open to myself being aware of it right now. And again, if you find yourself getting lost in one feeling or one worry or one body sensation, then say to yourself, what else can I notice? There's so much happening in this present moment. That which you can smell and hear and image and see and experience all throughout your body and feel and think. So much going on. So practice being curious about it. It's already happening anyway. And we can actually be there for it by being curious and open like this. We can notice so much more. Moving into the second phase of this character strengths breathing space, we move from curiosity to self-regulation. We bring all of our attention to our breathing. This is where you might put your hands together against your chest, almost as in a bowing posture, as if you're to bow and honor yourself. And here in this phase, we're bringing our attention to just one thing, just our in-breath and out-breath. A moment ago, we were open to anything going on. Now, concentrate. Concentrate on your inhale and your exhale. When you're breathing in, you're aware. This is my in-breath. When you're breathing out, you're aware. This is my out-breath. And of course, your mind will wander. You simply bring it back to that concentration. Back to your hands clasped, making contact with your chest so you can feel your breathing literally. Back to your in-breath. Back to your out-breath. This is self-regulation because you're taking control of where you put your attention. And then from the self-regulation on your breathing, continue to be aware of your breathing, but now allow your awareness to expand, to be aware of your whole body and mind. This is where the hands might extend outward, perhaps much more wide, maybe upward a bit, to show this wider perspective. And that's the character strength of perspective. taking in the wider view. Rather than getting lost in the details, stepping back and seeing the big picture. So see if you can feel your whole body and mind together right now. There's a felt sense. You can actually feel your wholeness, if you will. You can feel your whole body rather than just your feet or your shoulders or your hands, but feel your whole body, that wider perspective. Realizing that you're much more than this body, so much going on in your mind. That's all part of this. And how you relate, your spirit, this wider perspective. See about feeling that bigger perspective. Breathing with your whole body, mind, and spirit. So I invite us to take those character strengths with us as we move throughout our day and we come back to our community here. Just a word about that particular meditation. We extended that, I don't know, maybe it was 10 minutes or 8 minutes long or so, but that's something that you could certainly make into a 1-minute meditation as a check-in for yourself. Something you could extend to a half an hour, or some of you already practice yoga or mindfulness, prayer, contemplation, centering prayer, all these different practices in some way. So weave this kind of thing into your practice, and you'll find that you'll be able to deepen on not just those 3 character strengths mentioned, but much more beyond those 3. So